Hello? Okay. Recording. Okay. When you ask for advice, you're not looking for the solution. You're looking for what resonates with you. Because the reality is that you already know the solution. You're just looking for the confidence or the motivation to actualize it, or more data so that you can figure out a direction of attack for the solution itself. Just because you know the solution to your problem doesn't mean that there isn't any benefit to asking for advice. Asking for advice just brings you a different set of perspective. It brings you those data points. I think we typically ask for advice in this middle stage of recognizing a problem and acting on a solution. And this middle stage can last anywhere from fractions of a second to probably forever. And I think the problems that last forever without being acted on are the things that become your demons or your insecurities or the things that subconsciously make your life's choices for you. But in that middle stage, no matter how long it lasts, we ask for advice. And I think the purpose of it can really be boiled down into one of two things. Getting the motivation to act on a solution that you've already decided, or to gather more data so that you can eventually act on the solution. This data can literally just be confirming something you already knew. So in that case, it works to boost your confidence. Or it can be a perspective that you hadn't consciously considered. And so in this gathering data stage, the important piece of asking for advice is quite literally just talking about it out loud and then listening to the other person's interpretation of your interpretation of the problem. It isn't necessarily understanding what they would do in your situation, but rather taking that moment to feel your gut reaction to their perspective or their understanding of your perspective. I think it's kind of insane how your gut reactions are such a clean indicator of your habits and your values, and in a reflection of your historical actions. That quite literally is what your gut instinct is made from, what it's primed for. I think a lot of people, when they ask for advice, feel this pressure to follow the path or perspective somebody else has given them. Maybe they feel inclined to follow it as a gratitude or token of appreciation of somebody else's time spent listening to themselves. But the reality is, like, nobody else has a stake in the problem. Nobody else can understand or be impacted by that problem the same way that you can. It's quite literally impossible. Your habits, values, upbringing, everything that makes you you is the thing that's impacted by the solving or not solving of the issue. And so, firstly, another person, no matter the amount of detailed description of the problem that you use to describe it, this other person could not understand the problem to the same degree that you would. But secondly, even if hypothetically they could do that, them solving the problem in a different way is so irrelevant. Because despite them understanding it, it won't impact them in the same way. And if you take it to another level, this person, if they were to have the same set of values and experiences and upbringings and make them a person that's as identical to you as possible, there's some degree of randomness that makes experience different from each human being to another. So, understanding that it's quite literally impossible for two people to understand any problem in the same way, it's also impossible for them to experience the problem or the impact of the solution in the same way. So I think the natural question next is, what is the point of advice? Somebody else not understanding your problem or experiencing the effects of the solution the same way as you doesn't mean that it's no longer valuable to hear this perspective. The important part in hearing and listening to somebody else's interpretation of your problem is to understand what resonates with you. That gut reaction you get when somebody else says any sentence that you feel good or bad about. If somebody else's interpretation of your problem makes you feel uncomfortable or icky, depending on that feeling, maybe explore that further. Maybe there's truth to it, because that gut reaction of discomfort could hold a truth that you're avoiding. Or maybe an outright disagreement guides you to understand that that is definitely not a direction of attack that you're willing to take. And any sort of positive, relatable gut feeling might confirm something that you already believed, even if it wasn't a conscious thought yet. And I think that's the beauty of advice, because there really isn't a good or bad direction. There isn't really a good or bad perspective that somebody else can give you. There isn't this external layer of judgment that exists in determining the action you need to take. Because oftentimes any problem that you face or experience can only really impact you. The consequences of your actions are so deeply personal to you that somebody else's perspective really doesn't matter. It's only about your reaction to their reaction of your description of your experience that matters, because that's the thing that lets you carve the path forward.